Do the Utah Jazz have a top 10 talent? Some people think so. Plus, Craig Bolerjack joins the program coming up today on Locked on Jazz. Pow.
You are Locked on Jazz, your daily podcast on the Utah Jazz. Part of the Locked on Podcast Network. Your team every day.
How are you? I'm David Locke, radio voice of the Utah Jazz, Jazz NBA insider. On today's show, CBS Sports ranks the top coaches in the NBA. Do the Jazz have a top 10 coach in the NBA? Will Hardy makes it into that top 10. We discuss whether that's the right choice or not. Craig Bolerjack stops by, talks to us about the young kids he saw at Summer League, plus gets us ready for the players in this upcoming season. Always a pleasure to talk with Bowler. So that's coming up on the program today on Locked on Jazz. It is your daily podcast on the Utah Jazz, give you insight, expertise, geeky numbers, and hopefully making it way better to be a Jazz fan each and every day. Thank you so much for making Locked on Jazz your first listen. We are free and available on all podcasting apps. Thank you for making Locked on Jazz your first listen. To the everydayers, love you. Thank you so much for all you do and all you have done for Locked on Jazz. Absolutely. We would obviously not be anywhere near where we are at this point. America's largest sports podcast network. Totally incredible. All right. Thank you very much. Today's show is brought to you by FanDuel. FanDuel still got that great deal going on right now for NFL Sunday Ticket. If anybody bets $5, they get a 3-week free trial of NFL Sunday Ticket for YouTube and YouTube TV. Visit FanDuel.com. That only lasts through the 22nd. CBS Sportsline ranked the top coaches in the NBA. JJ Redick came in 30th. Greg Popovich, the shine off the great, most winningest coach of all time, ranked 14th in his own little tier of living legends. He broke the group up. Sam Quinn did this at CBS Sports. He broke the group up in his "we don't know enough." I'm not enthused. You look promising, but it's a tad early. Middle of the road. A few surprises there. Living legend, Pop's own tier. Obvious floor raisers. The Wonder Kids. The Elites. And the Undisputed King. That was Sam Quinn's breakdown of the coaches. Where do you think Will Hardy fit? Here's what the evaluation was. Let's walk through that because that's pretty interesting. Here's how Sam Quinn of CBS Sports did. He said, first, track record. A great coach tends to win a lot of games, regular season, advance deep in the postseason. So this is where really, if you're believing Will Hardy's a top 10 coach in the NBA, you have to throw this out because his record in the second half of seasons has been manipulated by the quest for draft picks, and there has been no postseason play. Performance against expectations. Sometimes a great coach, Sam writes, is stricken with limited roster. Can he make lemonade out of lemons? Boy, can Will Hardy do that. The amount, and this gets into another one later where he talks about player development. Do draft picks pan out? So we don't know about that yet. But player development, we have had multiple players with career high assists. We've had multiple players with career high seasons. He's gotten more out of Colin Sexton, more out of Lauri Markkanen, maybe more out of Kelly Olynyk than anyone had. Jordan Clarkson had a career high assist. Taylor Horton-Tucker had a career high assist. Lauri Markkanen's had career high assist. Colin Sexton. If you don't pass the ball and you don't play hard, you don't play. We've heard him say it, and he's instituted it across. That gets to number 3, point of emphasis. Does the team take the right kind of shots? Do they allow the right kind of shots? Do you have ways of generating turnovers without excessive fouling? Bounce. He goes, okay, so play harder, pass. And the revival that Will Hardy had last year in this team out of Portland when it was really just utter disarray, and he has kind of like come to you-know-what with them, and they respond, and the team turns the corner, is really impressive coaching. This is what, about Will Hardy, gets Sam Quinn and others, including myself, who cares about the track record? He's gotten performance above expectations out of players. He has a clear point of emphasis. If you don't play hard, you don't pass, you don't play, no free minutes. Those are the mantras of Will Hardy. He does some other high-level things creatively. They talk about creativity as he found unorthodox ways. Well, he uses Lowry in a different way than he has some others. I think some of his creativity might have got him in trouble to start last year. He tried something where we played kind of 5-out, no pick and roll, pure drive game, led to excessive turnovers, and he pivoted off it. I haven't talked to him about it, actually, but I think in retrospect, the way we came out and what looked like it was right on paper for this team turned out to go the wrong way, and then he beautifully pivoted out of it. The way he's used Colin Sexton in moving him on and off the ball, getting the most out of him, maximizing. I mean, one thing he talks about a lot is, what is my player's superpower? How do I get what are the player's superpower? Rotation management, I think he's had some really, really difficult rotation things, and I've really find myself complaining almost nothing about his rotation. But how do you integrate Keyonte George, Taylor Hendricks? When do you integrate them? Not to mention, how do you play Colin Sexton? How do you play John Collins and Walker Kessler? I think that's been the harsh. The thing he's probably done best is Sam Quinn's last evaluation, people management. And this is the stuff we don't really see. I'm fortunate enough to get to know some of it. Do the players like him? Do the players play? There's these moments in time as a head coach that I think are actually most important. One of which is last year, my memories were in Orlando. And I think I talked to Bowler about this coming up here. And I think it's on, we pre-taped the Bowler interview. I think it's going to be on the show we do Monday or Tuesday. So I'm telling a story today that I'll tell on Tuesday or Monday or Tuesday. So thank you, everydayers. I appreciate your patience. When the Jazz made the trades, he then sat down with John Collins, Jordan Clarkson, Larry Mark and said, okay, well, what are we going to do? It's clear. Like we just pulled the ripcord. So like, what do you want to do? And it's that type of communication where you're not lying to the guys. Like, I need you to play hard today, and like, we're still going after like, okay. And then they look at you and they're like, yeah, we're not actually, we're not, you're full of crap. And you lose a locker room. He's really been pretty fabulous at that type of player management and communication. So when Will Hardy gets ranked in the top 10 by Sam Quinn, if this is the evaluation system, sure. Because the track record, so performance against expectation, A+, points of emphasis, very clear, has a direction, hasn't wavered. was with a young coach in the NBA who, what I talked about, he made an adjustment. He had his core, and they made an adjustment. He made an adjustment off his adjustment. He made another adjustment off his adjustment. He made another adjustment off his adjustment, never getting back to his core. What I've watched with Will Hardy is Will Hardy does something. I just talked about somewhere I thought maybe he struggled, which was he opened last year trying to play open and just drive game and no pick and rolls, and then everybody's throwing the ball all over the gym. We were turning it over at a crazy rate. He came back to his core to pivot. That, I think, is the key. So point of emphasis, like he comes back to his core to make the adjustment to fix whatever he's doing next. Creativity, we've seen it. Player development, we've seen it. Rotation. There's, quite honestly, how do we get rid of being 30th in the league in transition defense? Like, I think that's like, let's get rid of that. How do we get rid of being 30th in the league in defense? Like, I think that's one. Like, Will's got to, like, you don't want to get suddenly labeled as just an offensive coach. So those things are good. He's been good late game. I don't know what a clutch record has been over the years, but it's been fine. Like he's pulled off a lot of good, really good late game management. He's been talking about rotation management. He's been really willing to like have one guy on the bench one day and one guy play the next day. It's been great. So I think, he gets ranked in this group of wonder kids. He and Mark Dagnall are the wonder kids. Mike, the obvious floor raisers are Ime Udoka, Mike Budenholzer, Tom Thibodeau, Joe Mazzulla, Chris Finch, and Mike Brown. In fairness to those six guys, this is done by tiers. And if you took the numbers off and just did it by tiers or types, I think it would probably be better. I think it's a little hard. If I was in a court of law trying to prove that Will Hardy was a better coach than Ime Udoka, Mike Budenholzer has won an NBA title, Tom Thibodeau, Joe Mazzulla has won an NBA title, Chris Finch, and Mike Brown, I'm going to struggle on some of those to win that case. But I get the point. Finch, I have to give credit to. He turned that team last year. I have not always been a fan. Let me rephrase that. I've not always known what all the hype was about. How's that? I haven't watched him and been like, oh, where you watch some of the stuff Will does and you're like, oh, like that's different. So I think that there's, hey, we were 13-7 last year with Will starting and with, that lineup and Simone Fontecchio and everything. I think you've got him. And Mark Dagnall, unquestionably. The elites, by the way, he has as Nick Nurse, Rick Carlisle, Steve Kerr, and Ty Lue. And the undisputed king is Eric Spoelstra. Probably true. He's 34 playoff series as a head coach. But it's interesting. So he has Spoelstra as one. The next grouping, he has Nurse, Carlisle, Kerr, and Ty Lue. Mark Dagnall and Will Hardy in the Wonder Kids. As I mentioned, the floor raisers are Mike Brown, Chris Finch, Joe Mazzulla, Tom Thibodeau, Mike Budenholzer, and Ime Udoka. Pop sits there in that group. Taylor Jenkins, Quinn Snyder, Mike Malone, and Jason Kidd are middle of the road. I quibble here. I think Michael Malone is fabulous. I think Quinn Snyder is fabulous. I think Taylor Jenkins is one of the best coaches in the NBA. And Jason Kidd, who, for whatever reason, never gets any praise, just got his team to the NBA Finals. I might argue that I think the Michael Malone, Quinn Snyder, Taylor Jenkins, Jason Kidd group is a better set of coaches than Ime Udoka, Mike Budenholzer, Tom Thibodeau, Joe Mazzulla, Chris Finch, and Mike Brown. So I would really quibble with the list at that point. On the other guys, I think Jamal Mosley deserves some credit. And the fact that he's not enthused about Doc Rivers, I think, is totally valid at this point. And that's going to be a really interesting storyline to this season of whether or not Doc Rivers can get the Milwaukee Bucks to do anything with a full season. But Will Hardy comes out as a top 10 NBA coach and a wonder kid. So the Jazz have a top 10 talent. Craig Bolerjack joins us next. Who's he most excited to see? What does he think of the Jazz young players? We're talking about it all next when we continue with the great TV voice of the Utah Jazz, Craig Bolerjack. Today's edition of Locked On Jazz is brought to you by Murdoch Hyundai, located at 4646 South State Street, also located in Logan and in Linden. The Murdochs and Locked On have been together since 2017. And it's been an absolute pleasure to be connected with them and just feel so comfortable sending you over to the Murdochs and knowing you're going to get wonderful treatment. The Hyundai car, it's just fabulous. Just award-winning after award-winning after award-winning. What else can be said? Is it the Motor Trend Car of the Year, the Ioniq 5, the SUV that won the Motor Trend Car of the Year? Is it the Ioniq 6 that won it the next year after that, or the comparable? Or is it the Hyundai Elantra, or the Sonata, the two great sedans? Or do you want something in the SUV lineup? Have you seen the new Hyundai Santa Fe? It is so cool looking. Amazing deals going on right now, all at Murdoch Hyundai, available for you. Let's get you the VIP treatment. So email me first at dlock09@gmail.com. That's dlock09@gmail.com so we can get you the VIP treatment at Murdoch Hyundai. It's the man, Craig Bolerjack. Makes everybody smile when they see him. They'll see him all year long on TV this year with Thurl Bailey. And then a new member of the crew, Lauren Green, will be the sideline reporter this year. Holly will come in for a few games. We'll be working on big projects, a little different role for her. But Big T and Bowler. Big T will be joining us later along the way as we get ready for the weekend. We may introduce you to Lauren somewhere before the open of the season. But Craig, let's start off with the rookies. Draft night, we worked on a 4-hour show together. I was screaming in your ear, "Come to me, baby, come to me, call you're slipping.
Hey, hold on. Does that surprise anybody that you were, hey, come to me.
And I'm Cody Williams, and then next night they got Filipowski. We've now seen those kids in summer league. So let's start off with Cody, the ninth pick of the draft. What were your impressions in summer league? What did you see from him? And what are you hoping to see this year?
You know, I saw a guy making the transition in those first couple of games, David, in Salt Lake. In Vegas, he seemed a little bit more comfortable. What I loved was his family being there and his brother, Jalen, who's an outstanding player from OKC. Those two grew up in Arizona. I can imagine the pickup games. I mean, they're competitive. The DNA of basketball is set in both those guys' soul. I'm only looking at what he accomplished at Colorado for a minute. He's a high-level scorer at 58, nearly 60% from the floor, and he scored 14 points a game. I think he's still slight of build. I think that will change as his body grows and the Jazz get a hold of him into the weight room. But he was on the boards, David. He was multiple, like 3, 4, 5. And the Jazz are right there and they pick him. And so it's almost like a gift, even though the Jazz fell, into the top 10 from 8 to 10 in the draft. I thought he did a pretty good job of making the transition early. I got to see more of him, obviously, but he's an athlete. He knows the game. And I think he's going to be very, very well coached and coachable by Will Hardy and his staff.
it was an interesting draft. I mean, it's going to be very interesting retrospective. There might not be another, I'm a draft geek. I actually I don't know if I've ever shown, I think I showed it to you. Someone found my original draft book I wrote in 1990.
You showed it to me. Yes.
With
Unbelievable.
Sean Bradley on the cover. That's when you know you're getting old. But this draft is going to be as fascinating as any draft I've ever seen to look back at over the years, because there was just no defined top, to the point where Cody Williams, and we'll see, he may or may not plan out. But I do know for a fact that 2 of the 3 teams in the top 3 talked about him.
Right.
And he went 9. That's
right.
a different draft. And there were reasons why he didn't go 1, 2, or 3. Let's not, sometimes you draft a player and all the warts go away, right? I'm trying to be a little honest about it. Hey, they decided at 3 to go to Reed Shepherd. They decided to go to Rush O'Shea at 1. They decided to go different. Washington decided to go to Alex Sarr. And dear God, for Washington, I hope that his summer league was Trae Young's summer league, not something else, because that was horrendous.
Yeah.
I was in the building in Vegas on Alex Sarr, had one of the worst games I've ever seen by a top 10 pick, other than the night we called Trae Young when he was equally as bad. So you never know.
That was a bad night for Trae, no doubt.
And he's turned out to be a walking top 10 offense, so it's all right. So yeah, I think it's going to be really interesting. I think you have, he's it's not there yet. The way my geeky response when people ask me about Cody Williams is, I was in Florence last year and reading about Michelangelo and David, and he said, well, David was inside the granite. I just, I didn't do anything. And a little bit, that's how I kind of feel about Cody Williams.
Oh, man. How did you work David into this conversation? I mean, he's inside the granite. But you know what? In a way, does he bust down? Does he grow into the role? Does he feel comfortable? Does playing with his brother Jalen make him a better pro because he sees it? And his brother has insight. Does he learn? David, I think the biggest thing for me we'll get to Isaiah and Kyle, but I think that's what's most important this year, even for the draft class of last year. Who busts out of the granite? Who actually, comes on the floor and makes an impact and actually changes this team's perception of themselves and the fan base as well. Those are all the talking points that we'll talk about.
I'm going to change our order a little bit, just because you went there. And Tim and I last week talked and kind of things got convoluted. So let's go. What player, not whose season is it the biggest season for,
okay,
but what player are you most interested in watching this year?
There's actually 2, but I'm going to whittle, and because I'm going to talk about the other player a lot. But I think for me, Walker Kessler could be a make or break year. 3rd season, NBA, wowed us in his rookie campaign. Last year, early injury, lost confidence, seemed to be frustrated, seemed to turn himself off a bit, in my opinion. You may see it differently from the coaching staff. And, he played, I'm looking down, 64 games. The most important, he only started 22, David. So, look, he's a shot block artist. In the 2 seasons that he's played, 321 career block shots. That's high level. But, consistency's big. Does he face the basket and shoot and score? No. Is he at the rim? Absolutely. And that kind of changes into what Filipowski, we'll get to that later. He intrigues me in the summer league. He started slow, but started to show some promise. He can face the basket. And I think maybe he's going to push Walker. And that's good. Let's decide it on the floor. But I think for me, I want to see if Walker regains some swagger, some confidence. And does he not look at Will Hardy as much? Does he understand he's a professional? And 3rd year, as you know, and Big T tells me this all the time, as Ron Boone does, year 3 is usually the deciding season on what you will be in the NBA. And I think that answers, I think he'll answer a lot of questions in that regard. Who is he? And are the Jazz going to stay with him?
It's a great discussion on when we actually know on players, right?
It is.
It's certain players have emerged and you look back, Shea Gilgeous, well, actually, if you look at his rookie year, maybe we did know, right? I actually am a little bit of this on the side that we actually know sooner. We maybe not know how far it's going to go, but we know sooner. But I do think year 3 is if you make the jump, right?
Right. That's the jumping
part. Can you make
the
jump? Can you, and then the big jump is going to be year 2 to year 3, and then everything's incremental from there on out. Now, some people theorized that big guys jump 4 to 5, and Jokic's jump was a little later, and things like that. So I love that discussion of when it is that someone jumps. Who was the other player you were going to mention that you are most interested in watching?
It's Keyonte for me. I just think, again, there's moments, and you and I've talked a lot, flights, buses. I mean, there's a lot of people don't know. There's a lot of Jazz NBA talk with the hours that we fly and the buses that we take. But I think the 2.5 turnovers that he averaged last year, David, that's not going to get it done. And there were games, multiple games, that he was in the 5 category, the 5 number in giveaways. Look, rookie year, I get it. Transition from college to the pros is tough, but I think he's the other guy that I watch. If you're going to run a franchise, the point guard's the key. I mean, you're the quarterback, and you're going to make things roll, and you got to take care of the ball. He was second only to JC, as you know, at 2.7, and Keyonte was 2.5. So he's the other player. I want to see how he plays within himself. I want to see attitude. I want to see leadership. And those are just a couple of points. I think he got confident at times last year, and then that confidence can be your worst enemy because you maybe, and again, these are my observations, and the coaching staff knows more than I do, but I still think that as a rookie, you still have to play within yourself and still be hard on yourself and understand this is still a long learning curve. And, don't get too confident with me now. Just go play the game. You're going to make mistakes, shake it off, and show me that you can improve and not do the same mistake over and over again. That's what I'm looking for.
What you're talking about, I've talked about a lot. Like, I wish I could wipe from my memory all the games he played to close the year without Jordan and without Lowry, because I don't know what choice he had, right? Like, he was he had to shoot 15, 16, 18, 19 times a night. We just didn't have other guys on the floor to do it. And that was frankly an ugly stretch. Like, I think if I remember correctly, going into the final night of the season, in his final 15 games, he'd only had 2 of the final 15 games where he shot over 40%, like 2 or 3.
That sounds about right. Yeah.
I mean, it was a really tough stretch. I might be it might be 4 of the 15 or something. And then the final night, he does go 8 of 11 for 21, played really well against Golden State.
You remember, though, a lot of those points came, and I'll give him credit. He was driving. He was fouled. He got a lot of points at the free throw line on multiple nights. And, it's same thing in the summer league as well. I like that. He's attacking, and that's good. But, again, it's about making shots, still distributing, and getting your teammates involved. Your point is well taken, though. You had a lot of players off the floor that are scorers that could have taken pressure off of Keyonte, but yet the Jazz did on that for a reason. They wanted to see how he would react and what he could do as really one of, if not the main guy on the floor. So we got some answers, but also he understood what he needs to work on in this offseason. And I'm anxious to see him in the next, about 3 weeks out?
That's right.
Amazing.
Yeah, no, I mean, final 16 games of the year, Keyonte shot 36% from the field and 26% from 3. We went 2 and 14. I just want to watch it from a memory. I don't think it was fair to him.
Yeah.
And and that's where I think guys you're most interested in watching. I'm right there. Like, I'm most interested in watching Keyonte in a setting with other players that are good, ready to go, where it's not new. Let's go. I'm with you.
Yep.
All right. Isaiah Collier, Kyle Filipowski, and who is this season biggest for on the Jazz roster? That's all coming up as we continue with the fabulous Craig Bolerjack here on Locked on Jazz. Today's show is brought to you by FanDuel. FanDuel's got an exciting deal for you for the start this season of the NFL that's a little different than what you might have thought. When you think of FanDuel, you think of America's #1 sports book. You think of all the great lines and things available for you on each and every night in the NFL. Those are all still available, but how about this right now for you with FanDuel coming up? You can get the NFL Sunday ticket. Yes, that's right, NFL Sunday ticket. Here's how it works. With FanDuel right now till September 22nd, all customers bet $5 and get a 3-week free trial in the NFL Sunday ticket from YouTube and YouTube TV. Then with YouTube TV base plan, you'll be able to watch every single regular season Sunday afternoon out-of-market game, all of Bolerjack's Chiefs games. All you need is a Google account, a current form of payment, and you cancel anytime. And if that's not enough, FanDuel's got their profit boost going on, so use it. With FanDuel's double your winnings for all of every Sunday. Moneyline bets, pregame moneyline bets on Sunday, and then the boosts usually start on Thursday of each week. So view your account page and learn more. That's all at FanDuel.com, America's #1 sportsbook. Today's show is also brought to you by Game Time. Game Time is the official ticketing app of Locked On. Why? Because Game Time takes care of you with all of the features you need. All-in pricing, no surprising. Toggle that feature on, and you know what you get at checkout. Seat view. Yeah, I don't want to sit behind some big, huge pillar. So seat view, panoramic view from every single seat. Lowest price guarantee, so you don't have to be checking 5 different apps to make sure you get it. And plus, it's 100% difference guarantee. Game Time ticket coverage, your ticket purchase is covered with flexible customer service policy in the ticket industry, all there. So take the guesswork out of buying tickets. Download the Game Time app today, create an account, use the code LOCKEDONNBA for $20 off your first purchase. Terms apply. Create an account, redeem code LOCKEDONNBA for $20 off. That's Game Time. Download Game Time today. What time is it? It's game time. Back with the TV voice of the Utah Jazz, the voice of the Jazz, Craig Bolerjack. All right, who is the season biggest for?
Oh, my goodness. We talked about two guys. Let's throw another name in here, okay? Because I think he'll start the season, but there's no guarantee he'll stay. And that's Taylor Hendricks.
Oh, interesting. That was not a lead-in that I anticipated for Taylor Hendricks. Elaborate, Craig Bolerjack.
I just think, again, Central Florida, he kind of just came on the scene as the year before, and the Jazz take a roll on him. We saw moments, again, of why the Jazz, took him top 10. I saw moments, David, where I thought, okay, the guy can play. Then I saw moments where I wasn't sure. Confidence is key. So, again, he would be on my radar of, again, who I want to watch. I want to see him progress quickly, I think is the word. I want to see this guy progress quickly. Look, everyone's down on the Jazz. I get it. 31-51 a year ago, and a horrific ending to the season because they pulled the vets and let the young guys play. Most likely, that's what we're going to see again. And I don't know what your prediction is, but 30 games maybe with hard play and development. We'll see. But there may be a surprise, and I'm looking for a surprise, I guess is the way I want to state this. Taylor is a guy I want to see. You talked about David and the granite or the marble. Does he bust out in year 2? I don't know. Keyonte, year 2, bust out. I don't know. But I think that's all the questions that we keep talking about in the media and on social media and the fan base. There are some that are hopeful that these 6 players over the last, 14 months are going to bust out and really prove critics wrong. But we still need time to see how this is going to play out. But Taylor does come to mind as one of those players. Does he have NBA skill set and toughness to really compete at a high level, slip and slide into the paint, score, rebound, and also run the floor and play deep? I mean, that's what Will Hardy wants, and I'm anxious to see how much he's progressed in the offseason too.
It's an interesting point I hadn't thought of, Craig, that when you think about the win total, FanDuel Sportsbook has us at 29.5. The player that might impact, I hadn't thought about this question, but the player that might impact the win total the most could be Taylor. Right? Like if Taylor emerges into a bona fide starting power forward into the NBA, and I think that's a 14.8 rebound, impacting the game defensively, like really, nothing. I'm not saying 22 points, but like a viable 28, 30 minute a night player. Yeah, you're right. Suddenly you got Keyonte, Colin Jordan, Lowry, Taylor's emerging, whatever combination of Walker and John as centers. But if Taylor doesn't, then you really have this kind of massive gap at power forward with, thus far, we have not been able to see John Collins and Walker Kessler play together to success.
Right.
I think it was nearly minus 20 was on the floor together last year. So if you suddenly don't get any minutes out of power forward, out of Taylor of value, and then Lowry, I guess, would probably have to slide over, and then who's your backup 3? Like, whoa, then you're playing Jordan, Colin, Keyonte, you're super small, you're going to struggle defensive. Like, is John your center, and now you're 6'9", 7'1" with Lowry, but you're 6'4", 6'2", 6. Like, whoa. Like it's a really, I had not thought about how much Taylor's play could really shift where things go.
If he doesn't play well, a name we haven't talked about yet is that 32nd pick from Duke and Kyle Filipowski. Does that open a door for him? Does he actually beat out Taylor? And that if he does play, because he would prefer, I think, to face the basket, right? And shoot jumpers and stretch the floor. If you thought Kessler and Marketing and Filipowski, that is one hell of a big front line again for the Jazz that have scoring ability. And also some defensive stoppage that they have in their back pocket. So that intrigues me as well. But I think it's going to be Taylor's job to win or to lose in the beginning of the season. It's still ongoing. I mean, there's so many names, so many players, such youth. And, what was it last year that or was it 2 years ago that Will Hardy made it was the about the competition for guard play. What was his line that he kept using?
Hunger Games.
The Hunger Games. And so, it'll be interesting to see what label that camp, if there is a label in camp. But, and Will Hardy's in his third year. I mean, he wants success. Look, he's got a 5-year deal. He's more than halfway through it as he starts this season, and he's all of 36. I mean, he wants success, and the Jazz hired him for that. But also, he's got to have the pieces and the time to let these guys mature into NBA players. And you know what? As you know, in any sport today, patience is not really what ownership is. Unless, Ryan and Danny are actually believing the picks they make are going to blossom quickly, or if this is a longer process than we think. But Will's got a probably in the back of his mind say, you know what, year 3, come on, unless he's been told, don't worry. But, coaches get hired and fired all the time in this league. And, there's no guarantees, and Will knows that. But this year is going to be intriguing. I think the biggest key, David, will be how far does the young core, how far do they progress and how quickly? They may bust out of the gate and surprise some people, right? Usually success for the Jazz comes early, and then once teams see them, they make those adjustments. And a lot of times youth aren't able to make the adjustments with those adjustments. So I'm intrigued for the year. I really am. I'm going to see youth on stage. We're going to see it. And then how do you blend the veterans of JC, Collins, and even Sexton in there as well? And Sensabaugh, I mean, does he get minutes at all? And does Isaiah Collier, who played alongside Bronny at USC, I mean, God, it's intriguing to see combinations and players with some high-level athleticism, but how do they bring it and how do they mix it on the floor?
He's Craig Bolerjack. He'll be back with me later this week. We'll continue this conversation. We'll talk about Will Hardy's third year and what we're anticipating seeing. We'll touch on Lowry's re-sign, which we didn't get to. We'll touch on Jordan and John Collins, how they all fit in. We'll talk the rest of the Western Conference as well. For those of you on audio, thanks so much for making it to the end of the show. If you're looking for a second listen day, Locked on NBA hasn't stopped. 30 minutes every single day. And Josh Lloyd's the #1 fantasy basketball show in the country with Locked on Fantasy Basketball. For those of you on video, we're going to send you the first ever national 24/7 sports channel. It's called Locked on Sports Today. Have a great one. Thanks so much for tuning in.